What's up, everybody? How you all doing? And I've moved my mic a little bit further away, so if you can't hear me very well, let me know and I'll stuff it back in my face like every other YouTuber does. But honestly, the worst thing about doing YouTube is having this fat mic in your face all the time, and it's like, am I breathing into it? Am I chewing it? What am I supposed to be doing? It's I don't know. It's a weird content creator thing that we all have to deal with. So how are you all doing today? How is everybody? Getting some Christmas vibes soon, I think. It's definitely getting cold here in the UK. I don't know about elsewhere, but I quite like the cold, actually. I walked to the supermarket today and having it like a little bit wet and cold and overcast is nice weather. I know not everybody likes it, but you know, it's all good. We got a bunch of things to talk about today as well, which is cool. So looking forward to today's session. And let me see who's in the chat. What's up, Patrick? Congratulations, first message. So you're taking the number one spot away from Eru. Look at this. Excuses already coming in. The browser display isn't nearly as quick as the mobile. So there we go. Excuse me. So how you guys doing? Let me keep scrolling down. What's up, Tones? What's up, Amma, Uzair, Hamza, the gentleman? How you doing? God of Possibilities. I like this username. That sounds good. Let me keep scrolling down. There's a question here. Okay, so any uncensored LLM trained for bug hunting? To be honest, like most LLMs are not really censored. Like even if you're like, hey, I want to do this crazy thing and it's like ethical guidelines, all you have to do is type, but it's for ethical reasons, or I'm testing something on my own environment. And it's like, okay, no problem. So I think the censorship on LLMs is fiction is my opinion on that. But you can just run models locally, of course. There's plenty of ways to spin up a model and access it from your own device. So all good. I've got some tea here. I don't know if you can see. Here we go, tea, without me spilling it everywhere. It's because it's hot today. No, cold today. So I've got to keep warm. And let me keep scrolling down in the chat. See if we've got any questions. Before I answer some questions, though, fun thing. Let's do this first. So I posted about this on LinkedIn today because I saw somebody else posting about it. So I like copied the post. I didn't really copy the post, but I also posted. So if we look at limpies.sh. Whoops. It's because Linease is not a thing. Limpies.sh. So a lot of people get Linpies from here, which is not owned by the maintainer of Linpies. And I saw some posts on LinkedIn saying, hey, look, like Linpies.sh is leaking information. And then they were saying like, you can't disable it, blah, blah, blah. So if you come to Linpies and you just type in curl, you come down to line 800, which is here. And you can see, hold on. Let me zoom in a little bit. And then you can see what information the script is leaking. There might be some other stuff as well elsewhere, but I checked all the curl requests, and this was the only one that was sus. So it's going to log.linpies.sh, generates a UUID, and then it's going to cat varlib dbus machine ID. So it's going to cat the ID, and then checks whether it's root, and then it passes the host name and the current user and the username, which is base64 encoded, and the current working directory, which is then base64 encoded, and then puts everything else out to like error messages or the response, etc., to dev null. So yeah, if you see something about Linpies leaking information, this is what everybody is referring to. So this is the I know it's pretty suspicious. Like if you're on a pen test, you don't want to be leaking like the host names and users and things like this. But it's also like not super sensitive information. It's probably put there just for like statistics purposes, but it's pretty sus. It's pretty bad. Like we shouldn't see stuff like this in I don't know, in regular scripts and whatever. Anyway, so yeah, just check out linpiece.sh, line 800. I only know it's line 800 because if you copy it into Visual Studio Code like this, and hold on, don't read my source code for that random application. There you go. You can see it's here on line 800. So there we go. Let's close that. Anyway, and if you want to disable it, there's an easy fix. You just do, wait, no, you just do this and then it's fine. But you should probably use the linpiece from the linpiece GitHub. And that's not to say that that's safe to use, because GitHub is not like an official host of anything. So obviously this is just a script built by somebody. So you're always going to have some risks using it. But don't get it off linpiece.sh. Get it from the maintainer on GitHub is the way to go. So there we go. Anyway, that's a fun news story for today. And if you want to go and read through some other scripts they're using, like WinPeas or some other things that are hosted elsewhere, then you might find some cool stuff or some interesting backdoors and things like this. I think it's quite common, so it's all good. All right, let me scroll down a little bit. How are we all doing in the live chat? I can see your comments, sir. You're all good. Live and kicking. We stream to multiple platforms, so not like sometimes there's like delays and things like that, but I see most things, I think. Yes, 10 out of 10 weather. This is where it's at. But it's quite nice. Like winter kind of like makes you feel like you're in a bubble. So I don't know. I always do lots of study, so all good. Oh, Patrick, for the super chat or donation, thank you very much. Although I don't see any text with this, so if you have a question or something, for sure drop it in, and we'll get through to it. So all good. All right. Oh, I've got a question here. Okay. I was watching Heath's 2023 full ethical hacking course. You're about 4 hours in. Nice. Skipping Python. Cool. But was wondering, how does submitting? Do you mean subnetting? Subnetting allows to use IPv4 over IPv6. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question, because like IPv4 and IPv6 are not exactly the same. But subnetting, like, do you mean like, is subnetting on IPv4 going to help you when it comes to IPv6? Because most organizations still are using IPv4 because ripping out all of your infrastructure and replacing it is not a viable option that you can sell to the CFO. So usually most people like layer IPv6 over the top. But I'm not 100% sure I understand what you're asking, especially since I'm a web guy. So, but if you can clarify, then I'll try and answer your question. But hopefully you're having a good time with the course so far. I can't remember whether the course covers IPv6. Maybe not. Maybe that's your question. But it's definitely worth diving into if you have the time. All right, let me keep scrolling down. Ooh, we're from Brazil. Nice. I've always wanted to go to Brazil. Excuse me. And there's good waves in Portugal. So if you're into surfing, which, I don't know, surfing's quite popular in Brazil. So, hey, Poppy. The cat is trying to steal the stream by eating my paperwork over there. I'm pretty sure that's my birth certificate she's trying to eat. But anyway, whatever, she can have it. Waves are good in Brazil. Waves are good in Portugal. So good luck with the move. What's up, Mary Ellen? Good to see you, as always. And you joined from the kitchen. Nice, nice. Covered in stuffing. I actually love stuffing. And it's the right time of year to be eating stuffing. So I respect this 100%. When it comes to like Christmas dinner, because I mean, we don't have Thanksgiving in the UK, and I think it's like maybe you're cooking for Thanksgiving at the moment. But when it comes to Christmas dinner, the stuffing is definitely like the best part of Christmas dinner. That and the gravy. So all good. Let me keep scrolling down. I always cheat, by the way. I use like the pre-made pack, and then I don't make stuffing from scratch. I don't know anybody who does, actually. What's studied to become a penetration tester when advancing AI tools are being used to do tasks like write malware, find vulnerabilities in general? So, hold on. Let me sort the cat out. And Poppy, come on, chill out. Chill out. Stop eating my documents. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. So, like, this is the funny thing. Is like, yeah, AI tools can do a lot of stuff, but generally speaking, they can only do basic things. Like, I've seen some really good stuff with Claude 3.5 and like how it reiterates and checks itself and does all sorts of crazy stuff. But honestly, it still makes mistakes, and think I'm yet to see an LLM write some decent malware that goes undetected and things like this. So I think it still has a huge way to go, and a lot of organizations that are using professional developers who are using AI tools are only reporting like 10-20% productivity increase. And so this whole thing where like, you can like be a 10x developer with AI tools, your code is going to be garbage. Unfortunately, it's just going to be terrible. It's not going to be scalable. It's not going to be maintainable. It can do things that exist in other applications because it's basically copying and pasting from stuff from everywhere else. But that's not what a developer's job is to do. The developer's job is to break down a problem, find the right fitting solution, and write something. And a lot of applications require something custom. And if you're on a write malware that doesn't get detected by EDR and every other antivirus in existence, then you're going to have to get creative. And LLMs are not creative. So honestly, I think we're years away from kind of what you're describing in the like pen testing and stuff like that is being replaced by AI tools. AI tools enhance us, but they're not that good. Like, they're definitely useful, but there's a long way to go. A long way to go. Before I forget, by the way, there's still Black Friday stuff. I don't actually know when Black Friday is because everybody seems to be doing Black Friday different times of year this year. So, but we still have Black Friday deals on. And where's the ticker? It's gone. Here we go. Oh, there we go. The magic. I think Brit's got me covered. We're all good. So you can get like half price on your first Academy subscription payment. And there's some bundles and other things that you can check out. I think it's 20% off all certifications. And also, if you didn't see, hold on. I just released a new module for the... How do I see this? It's because I'm on my VM. I'm going to try and find the new module and see whether we can see it. Oh, there we go. So we've got Black Friday and Academy. Hello, Cloudflare, my old arch enemy and my current arch enemy. And oh no, I just want to go to courses and let's search for... There we are. Look at this one. There we go. So we have, oh, there's a horrible picture of me. We'll just ignore that picture of me. So I've just dropped this whole module. I think it's like 2.5 hours in total. And if you've never touched GraphQL before, it's going to be the module for you, because basically what it's covering is like how GraphQL works and features of GraphQL and how we can abuse them. So it doesn't really dive into things like injection attacks. We talk a little bit about it and like, how to deliver injection attacks and things like this, because GraphQL is obviously like a middleware sitting in the tech stack, but mostly looking at things like introspection, field suggestions, field stuffing, batched queries, all sorts of stuff. So if you're interested in GraphQL, then I don't know. We're going to do some GraphQL stuff today anyway. So so you'll see, whoops, wrong camera. There we go. So you'll see everything in a little bit. All right, let me keep scrolling down. We'll answer a few more questions and then we'll dive in. I've lost my place in the chat. Let me see. Oh, when is network free tier coming and is Linux 101 free? I'm not sure actually. I haven't checked what's on the free tier recently. Maybe somebody in the chat will know, but it's probably in the pipeline, but I don't think before the end of the year. So maybe, hopefully, sometime next year, for sure. We're always working on new stuff, and we put as much stuff into free tier as we can. So, but obviously, like, yeah, it's a lot of content to make. Making content is like takes time. Takes us like, I don't know, more than an hour to do like 1 minute of video is basically it. So. Hey, shout out to Malware Cube. We'll give the people what they want and bring him back. I think you guys had like 3 streams in a row with Andrew Prince. So I don't know. We've got to keep everything in balance, but just depends how busy we are. But I'll pass along that the people want to see the blue team stuff from our Canadian friends. This sounds kind of like Brett, you sound like a James Bond villain. You have big plans for Malware Cube. Oh dear, all good. Let me answer 2 more questions and then let's look at some GraphQL stuff. Let me keep scrolling down. Did I name my machine after you? Of course I did. 100%. This is definitely what happened. Let me keep scrolling down. Oh, okay. If I set a match and replace rule in Burp Suite, it's been a while since I've done that actually, the match and replace. It should carry over to my browser that's being proxied through. Yes, it should, but something to be aware of when you're doing like intercept and stuff, when you're in the proxy view in HTTP history, you default to the unedited request and then maybe click on the edited request or like the modified request, and then you'll see the changes. So that sometimes catches me out. I'm like, oh, I intercepted this and changed it, and why is it on the original? But it's because of that. So that might be, that sounds like what you're running into. But if not, then I don't know. Ping me on Discord later. We'll troubleshoot or something. But I've been having some rough times with Burp Suite recently. It's been all good. All right. Hello, kitten. Let's do a machine. So today, because we're going to do some GraphQL stuff, I think we're just going to do a couple of Burp Suite labs, and I'm just going to try and like walk you guys through them so that you can learn a little bit about like the methodology behind attacking GraphQL applications. So let's see. I'm going to skip to the bottom of the chat, by the way. So just a heads up, I was 10 minutes behind in the chat, but Britt's starring the questions. So when we take some breaks, like I'll come back to questions. So what I mean is keep trolling me in the chat, but if you've already asked the question, it's probably been tagged and we'll get to it, or we'll do our best to get to it. Otherwise, somebody next week, like Andrew, will have to answer your question instead of me. So all good. Whoops. Oh, somebody says, yeah, whoops. Foxy Proxy can be a little bit finicky, for sure. To be honest, I stopped using it quite a long time ago because I just use the Burp Suite inbuilt browser now, and that's it. So that makes life easier. So if we proxy open browser, I try and do stuff in here because sometimes even when there's like a valid certificate, you get certificate issues with Burp Suite trying to proxy traffic. Whoa, this picture is crazy. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, I use them like 50-50 at the moment. So I'm using I'm trying to use I'm trying to do half my work in Kaido and half my work in Burp Suite. One, because Burp Suite has a lot of features which I use regularly, but Kaido is a lot faster, and I think from a workflow perspective, a little bit nicer, and I like the UI more. And so I'm kind of using both. I'd like to support Kaido a little bit more so that the tool grows. And one of the big things is that since Kaido's become a little bit more popular, Burp Suite have been pushing a lot of updates that, to be honest, should have been pushed out years ago. So healthy competition is going to make everybody thrive. And so, yeah, I'm kind of just using both. I have Burp Suite Pro and also the subscription to Kaido. So I'm using kind of, for my day-to-day stuff, I'm using Kaido. And then for like teaching stuff, because Burp Suite is kind of like the industry standard, I'm using that. And also when it comes to things like GraphQL, you've got like the InQL scanner and things like that. All like Burp Suite has a lot of plugins which are useful. And doing like race conditions and stuff is really easy, and things like this. All right, so let's explore this application. And there's not actually much to explore. It looks like we just have a list of blog posts, and that's it. So let's come into proxy, HTTP history. Let me change my settings because you guys probably can't see the UI. So let me make the display a little bit bigger. This is why I'm on the wrong VM. It's fine. It doesn't matter. I don't think there's too much sensitive stuff on here. We'll see. If you see anything being leaked, don't blame me. Oops, let's close this settings. Okay, hopefully this is big enough for you guys to see. So the most obvious thing is when you see something like, sorry, let me pull up a text editor. When you see in your Burp Suite history something like /GraphQL or /API/GraphQL or something like /v1/GraphQL like this, you're probably like, you'll see this quite a lot. Like you'll see a lot of endpoints called this. Occasionally you'll see stuff like /GQL. You might just see /v1/API or like v2 API or something like this. You might see /playground like this, or you might see /sandbox, which if you're using something like Apollo server and you run your application and you're running it in like just like not in non-production mode, it's going to spin up the playground, the sandbox, and sometimes you can find endpoints like this as well. Occasionally you'll find them on production systems. It's always worth checking for. But these are like your typical GraphQL endpoints that we're on the lookout for. And here, so Burp Suite is quite smart in terms of like it's detected that there is GraphQL. You know what also really irritates me about the Burp Suite is if this is cut off, you can't click on it. So if you ever have like something like that gives you a new tab, but like the end is like chopped slightly, like oh no, let me switch away from it. Oh, it's not doing it now. Why you do this to me, Burp Suite? Like this? You can't click on it, and you're like, my plugin is broken, but make sure that you can actually see it. That I wasted 10 minutes once trying to figure that out. So anyway, now you know. And yeah, so this is like the built-in GraphQL in Burp Suite, and the GraphQL InQL scanner. This is a plugin, so you can go to extensions and you can see that this is installed. It's a little bit of a heavy plugin, if I recall. Yeah, the overall, like the estimate, I mean, it depends on your machine. Like my machine has plenty of RAM, so it's not too bad, but the estimated system impact is high. So if you're not working with GraphQL, maybe just disable it, and you don't have to uninstall it. You can just come to install and just uncheck it, and it just doesn't load it, and then you're all good. The reason I like this one is because a lot of the time, the GraphQL that's built into Burp Suite, this gets all mangled, and like the spacing is off, and it's not the prettiest. Whereas GraphQL InQL scanner is really good at formatting. So I tend to use this. But this one has like query highlighting, which is kind of nice. So I don't know, use whatever you like. But here we can see we've got a get blog summaries query. And then here we've got get all blog posts, and it's returning the image, title, summary, and ID. So let's send this to repeater. And we'll send this. So the nice thing about GraphQL is if you've ever worked with REST applications, one of the problems with REST is the over and under fetching. So for example, if we just wanted a list of the titles for the blog posts, we can modify this query like this. And then the client can be like, I just want the titles, and that's it. And then it might be using them for like links or something. And then maybe actually what it needs is, as part of the link, it might also need the ID. So it can like grab the ID. So this avoids overfetching. And we can avoid underfetching as well because, wait, so overfetching is fetching too much data, and underfetching is not fetching enough. So you have to send multiple requests. So there might be like, for example, a situation where, oh no, why is Control Z not working? Let's come back to here. I'm just going to copy this quickly. There might be a situation where the summary is on a different endpoint. So you might have like, this is your standard query, for example, for a REST API endpoint. And then you might have like a /summary that takes in an ID, for example, that sends you back the summary. And so if you wanted to get all of the information from all of these, you're looking at like 5 or 6 or maybe even 100 requests if this was like an individual request or an individual API endpoint. So GraphQL is really good in terms of like giving you a lot of flexibility. The downside to this is that in that flexibility, it's really easy to expose information, create circular relationships between objects or types that can lead so that we can easily craft denial of service attacks. There's a lot of features like introspection. So if we come in here, come to GraphQL, and this is built into Burp Suite as well, set introspection query, click send. We can query the API. And this is really useful for development because now we have all of the information about the API. We have the schema and all of the types and everything else, and we can visualize this. The downside is if the developers have made a mistake, we can easily find that mistake. So it makes it very easy to test. So if I just come into Chrome quickly and come to GraphQL Voyager, and come to change schema, introspection, paste. Excuse me. This is a very simple schema. Obviously, usually it's way more complicated than this, but we can see everything. So if we have sensitive fields in here, so we can see like this is private, we can see the post password, and we can see the relationships between these queries here and this blog post type. And we can start targeting information that we want to target. So let's give this a try. I can't actually remember what the point of this lab is. Accessing private GraphQL posts. Okay, so this is our target. So another fun thing about Burp Suite is that once you've run your introspection, sometimes this is disabled, by the way, in production, so you won't be able to use introspection, but there are other techniques to like glean information from the target, and we can obviously fuzz the target. We can fuzz like query types, mutations, field names to try and discover information as well. But if introspection is enabled, that makes life easier for us. So once we've set the introspection query, we can save the GraphQL queries to the sitemap, come over to the target, come into here, come into GraphQL, and here we can see all of the GraphQL queries. So for example, we have get blog post by ID, so we can get an individual blog post. And to use this, we just press Control-R to go to repeater, hit send, and there we go. And then we can play around with this and make sure, check for, maybe we could try injection here. If we had some variable input that was like a name and it was reflected, we could test for cross-site scripting. We can test for like broken access control, things like this. Obviously, this get blog post, there's no authentication in this application, so there's no access control, but just for example. And so we also have get blog summaries, and we also have the get all blog posts, and we also have the get blog post by its ID as well. And you'll notice these are in gray. So these two are discovered via the introspection, and these two are discovered by us browsing the application. So when we were browsing, this get blog summaries came up, and it was automatically added to here. And then we discovered these other two via introspection. So if you keep using an application, you might discover everything, but you'll probably find stuff that isn't used by the front end. So you'll find some functionality that exists that the front end didn't know about or is like legacy, especially when you see like /v1. You want to try like /dev, /0. Sometimes you find other GraphQL endpoints, et cetera, et cetera. So what we want to do is let's try getting all the blog posts and seeing what we find. And once again, like, I don't really want all this summary information, and I don't want the paragraphs. And so we can just send this, and actually don't want the title. We don't care about the author. We don't care about the image. And so this is what I want to see. So nice, flexible. You can see very quickly how flexible GraphQL is in terms of querying for data. And here, so we have ID 4, 5, 2, and 1. And all of these are set to false in terms of private. So that means that probably blog post ID 3 is set to private, and there might be a password for it as well. So we can come back to here, grab this. So this grabs the individual blog posts by ID. Come to here. Let's once again get rid of all of the junk that we don't care about. So we can do 1, for example. This is 1, 2, and then the one that looks like it was missing. Obviously, we could send this to Intruder as well. And sometimes these use like UUIDs as well. So for example, we might have to find a different endpoint that's like leaky, that leaks UUIDs that we can use. And blog post number 3 is private true, and it leaks the password here. And I've seen in the past like user passwords and things, and application secrets and all sorts of things being leaked through GraphQL. So information disclosure is definitely like probably one of the 3 biggest issues. I think information disclosure, broken access control, and denial of service are like the 3 big things that you want to be looking for when it comes to GraphQL applications. And then we can submit this, and we clear the lab. So all good. There you go. That's all you need to know about GraphQL. Enjoy your bug bounty. No, there's obviously more to it than that. We're kind of just scratching the surface. But like, for example, if we had something here like I don't exist, you can see that we get this like validation error, and it's like, oh, this field I don't exist doesn't exist. And if we didn't have the schema here, we could start testing, and we could be like, okay, so let's test for, I wonder if this will reveal the password is undefined. Let's do ST just for example. It doesn't have field suggestions on, so it's not telling us like what should be there, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, this is called field stuffing, where we like add loads of data here to like test for fields that we don't know exist. So this is cool. All right, let's answer some more questions before we move on. And let me find where my camera's gone. There we go. All right. How are you all doing in the chat? Okay. I can't see where I left off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip to the pinned questions and answer some of those. And look how cute Poppy looks. I put a little light in her cat bed just so you guys can see her. Yeah. Yeah, she's so cute. Okay, I won't disturb her too much, otherwise she'll start running around again. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. How to start bug bounty. Honestly, like I would say the best way to start is if you're starting from absolute zero, follow a web hacking course to kind of like build the foundations. Build a small web app so that you know how web apps work and how HTTP works. And then pick a couple of issues that you really want to get to know, practice those, and then go and start bug bounty. I think that's like the shortest way. There are probably many different ways to really get into bug bounty, but I think that's probably the most direct way. And if you want, like, obviously there are courses on TCM Security Academy. If you want free stuff, then look at Portswigger, for example. Check out Jason Haddox's talk on bug bounty recon on YouTube. Honestly, like, there's no like lots of people have different methodologies, and you need to kind of like absorb a lot of information, decide what's right for you, and then kind of go from there. But the fundamentals don't change. So understanding how web apps work, and I would say get to grips with APIs, because everything these days is a front end framework powered by APIs on the back end, and then keep going from there for sure. One of the most common vulns we find with APIs, idle, I think, or like Bowler, if we're talking specifically about APIs, so broken object level authorization or insecure direct object reference. They're basically the same thing. Baffler, broken function level authorization, which is like the same thing, but it's like functionality. It's like your post requests and things, or it's like your mutation in GraphQL. Information disclosure. APIs tend to be really chatty. They want to provide information to you. API keys and GitHub repositories. I think that's a big one. Excuse me. But yeah, access control issues, generally speaking, and information disclosure issues are definitely big. I think I'm losing my voice a little bit, so apologies for that. Oh. Would you rather do a job as a help desk / developer for a few months for a penetration tester, or enhance your skills in penetration testing and get certified while doing bug bounty and freelancing? Hard question, because there's so many other variables at work. Like, so, you know, if you're doing help desk and development for a few months, sounds like for a penetration testing company, you know, if somebody's going to mentor you and you're going to get some insight and experience, and you're going to learn to use like reporting tools and all sorts of other things, there's a lot of value in that. But if you're just talking about like raw skills and study, and you can afford to support yourself, then going heavy into like, I'm going to spend every day and I'm going to work and study, there's also value in that. So there's no right or wrong answer. I think you just have to think about all of the other things. But these two things both sound potentially viable or useful paths. So all good. Let me scroll down. Oh, okay. So what are our thoughts on the most critical skills for aspiring pen testers in 2024? I mean, web apps aren't going away. Probably, like, I suspect most pen test consultancies are somewhere like 50% web apps, 50% network pen tests. So maybe it's like, you know, 60-40 for some, 70-30 for others. But like, everything is a web app these days. The whole world is web applications. So that's a big thing. Obviously, cloud is a big thing as well, because more and more organizations are moving their environments to cloud. Excuse me. But for me, I like AppSec, so I will stick with web apps. I don't think any of these fields are going to disappear entirely, so I wouldn't worry too much about, like, you know, if I go into web apps, is that in 10 years going to disappear? No, web apps are going to still be around in 10 years. Cloud will still be here in 10 years. You know, etc., etc. So I know that the world of bug bounty is also moving into like, from what I heard, maybe organizations are going to start opening up source code for source code review. So if you get invited to a bug bounty program, you're also going to have access to like their repository so that you can go deeper and things like that. If that happens, I'm definitely going to do more bug bounty because I'm a big fan of code review. But at the moment, it's, I think, kind of like, I don't know, it depends where you are in your bug bounty journey. So all good. Let me keep scrolling down. How to be good at bug bounty. This is a question for like NahamSec or Jason Haddix or Bug Bounty Reports Explained or one of the other like dedicated bug bounty people, because I'm more like AppSec engineering side. So I don't do a lot of bug bounty. This is the thing. Like, I have a full-time job. I have 2 crazy cats to look after. I have to look after myself as well as a functioning adult. I probably don't do more than like 2 or 3 hours of bug bounty a week, and that's on a good week. So I'm not the right person to answer this. But I think what it does boil down to is understanding how technology works. And if you understand how technology works, when it does something quirky, your hacking antenna will start to like fizz, and you're like hacking spidey sense, and then you'll be able to find interesting things, I think, for sure. Being methodical early on also really, really helps. All right, so let me jump into another lab and we will, I'll come back. There's so many questions. Okay, which is great, but we also need to do some technical stuff. So let me switch back and then we'll answer some more questions at the end. And all good. Let me pull up another lab. I think this is a good insight. I think bug bounty is tough for sure. Like it's not easy, 100%. I think yeah, it's especially depending on where you live and depending on like your salary, for example. There's no way I could make more money doing bug bounty than I can do working as like a security engineer or as an AppSec or as like a web app pen tester or like in my current job, for example. I just don't think it's possible. I know some people obviously earn a lot of money doing it, but they have very, very different situation. So you have to think when somebody's like, oh, I've made all this money doing bug bounty. It's like, who do they know? Which programs did they get onto? What place did they go to get, because you see some like private bug bounty meetups and then they're like, oh, we shelled out 75K. And it's like, well, I wasn't invited. So, how do you get onto these things sometimes? That's not to say it's all like that, but, there's always more to the story than what people let on. So this is something to be aware of for sure. All right, let's do another GraphQL. This is what we were talking about actually. So accidental exposure of private GraphQL fields, and let's take a look at the application. Making the holidays special again. That's what we like. And it looks like we actually have a login form here. Oops. There we go. So we've got Vina Pizza as the password as usual. Let's try test at test.com. Let's just copy and paste this. Yeah, we can update the email and let's just switch it back. My account, home. Oh, once we're logged in, yeah, we can actually see other posts. Did I miss that? Maybe I clicked on it accidentally. And we have some logout. Okay. So that might have just killed our session. So we might have to log back in. So we come back to targets. And you can instantly see we have this GraphQL v1. And it starts mapping. Once again, the lights the non-muted text, or like the white text, is from our HTTP history. And then if we can do introspection, they're going to come in dark gray. Note that when we do our introspection, and if it's an authenticated endpoint, when you press Control-R and send something to a repeater, you're going to have to copy and paste your cookie or token into it. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. So when it maps from introspection, it doesn't obviously give like your headers, like your custom headers or your cookie or whatever. So yeah, we have a session cookie here. This isn't going to be in the ones if we can get introspection. So just a fun quirk. I mean, you'll see that because it'll just say not authorized, but let's try this. So GraphQL, get all blog posts. Let's get rid of the summaries and the images. And let's, GraphQL, set introspection query. There are some variations on introspection query. And also an interesting one is that like if schema is blocked, we can still do some stuff. Like we can check for like field names because we can like query the types. But yeah, I don't think I've ever found a web application that specifically blocked schema because they didn't want to disable introspection, but it probably exists somewhere. And then of course you've got old stuff that might like your typical bypass where like there's a non-recursive filter on the keyword schema, and then you can do like, you know, schema like this to bypass. But again, I've never seen that in the in terms of GraphQL in the real world. So let's copy this and go to Chrome and GraphQL Voyager. I think I'm quite a visual person. I like to I like seeing the schema. So we've got our queries. So get blog post, which is linked to blog posts, and then get all blog posts, which is also linked here. Then we've also got get user. And interestingly enough, we actually have a password here. And I've seen this once before in a live application where we could retrieve the password string from here. So what we want to do is find this get user query and then see whether they have field level authorization implemented on this password field. So let's come back to here. Let's save the GraphQL queries to the sitemap. Come back to here, and you see these gray ones. These are the ones that introspection has found for us. So change email. I thought we had already used that one, but it might be because it's, don't know why it's repeating this. Or maybe just because the variables are different. Not sure. Quirky. Change email. We've got the login. We've got get user. This is what we want. Get user for sure. So yeah, if our variable is 0, let's come over to here because it's a little bit easier to work with. Do 1, and yeah, we can leak the password. So the way I found it before is we could get user by ID, and it had like, for example, like a username, and it had like their posts, and then like in here it'd have like their post ID and some other information. But this one is fairly straightforward in that we can just query the password, and this gives us credentials to log in. So, but I've seen an issue very similar to this in the real world. So this is something to we probably have to delete Carlos to be aware of. So all good. Nice. How we solved that. That was really easy. I mean, once you know how GraphQL works, I think attacking GraphQL is not that difficult. Like, there's always going to be situations where it's going to be tricky, but you know, generally speaking, yeah, this doesn't have field suggestions either. Let me show you. So in the course, I want to show you field suggestions quickly as a oh, we already have Chrome up. For some fun. So this is one of the labs in the course, so you can sign up. like this. Actually, I should do this in Burp Suite so that we can see the traffic. Hold on. Let me do this. So alex.com password like this. And you can come in and like you can create a server. So let's just create Alex's server. And you come in here and we've got general, and you can create rooms like off topic like this. Ooh, something went wrong there. Oh yeah, actually what's interesting is with my application, when you run it and Burp Suite's in the middle, some of the requests don't go through, and occasionally you'll see an error message, but it's working nonetheless, so we're all good. So here in this application, you can like create rooms, and you can show like the invite link, and you can join servers and things like this. And what I want to do is I want to show you field stuffing, not field stuffing, field suggestions really quickly. So here we have this get messages. So let's just use this. And this is going to return like this message. And then if we also go hello also, for example, and return this, you can see that we can get the messages. So yeah, you can see now this is like formatted in a bit of a weird way. So InQL is a little bit nicer to use. So here, for example, if we didn't know the username, for example, or actually, let's do like email or like email ADDR like this. You can see that here, GraphQL is really nice. It gives us suggestions. So when we're fuzzing, what we can do is we can fuzz for lots of different field names if we don't know the field names or like the properties of this object. So the sender is a type, which is basically an object, and the fields are properties of that object in like GraphQL speak. And here it's like, oh, we didn't find email because it's case sensitive. Did you mean email? And then what we can do is we can go in and fuzz the application, have a look for the suggestions, remove the ones that are false, and then start like leaking information. For example, I don't think we can get a password in here. It's going to be like, there's no password. No, you can't steal the user password, but yeah, this is the idea behind field suggestions. So there's lots of features of GraphQL that are like that help us, if that makes sense, as attackers. And of course, you can disable a lot of them, but a lot of them are enabled by default. So that's something to remember. Anyway, if you want to learn more about GraphQL, advanced web hacking module, it's all in there. Enjoy, and then I'm working on out-of-band security testing next. So we're going to look specifically at microservices and cloud applications, and look at out-of-band attacks like server-side request forgery, and really making the most of them, because a couple of times I've found server-side request forgery in the past and just zero impact. And so I think what we're going to do is go deeper into attacks like that, understand how they work, and then where possible, what are the use cases where we can actually demonstrate some impact when we have things like we can create DNS requests or HTTP requests with injection, which is kind of rare unless it's command injection, where we find server-side request forgery, etc., etc. So that's going to be the next module. What did I build that went into orbit? My ego. That went into... No, I'm joking. I don't think I've built anything that's in orbit. Who knows? Oh. All right, let me scroll up and answer some questions. And keep scrolling down. Oh, interesting question. So is hacking more about coding, or should I know something else? I think like having some development skills, being able to read and write code is for me, I think it's really, really important understanding how software works, or how, depending on what type of hacking you're doing. If you're doing like IoT stuff, understanding how hardware works and electronics and stuff like that, also really important. But yeah, I think it's just there's many things that you need to kind of like learn about in terms of like to get software to work. There are so many layers of technology that all interact with each other's, and you don't have to know everything about every single layer, but you need to know enough to kind of like understand how it works, so that when it misbehaves or when something quirky happens, you can jump on that and exploit it. But programming skills, I think, is really important, for sure. Not everybody agrees, and that's fine, but I think it is. Let me keep scrolling down. So what about when introspection is turned off? Yeah, so we can manually fuzz. So for example, when we saw this query in here, oh, whoops, wrong way. We can fuzz field names, we can fuzz queries, or we can fuzz, like, we could be like, hey, mutation, like this, and like update user, for example. And then when it finds something, so let's say, yeah, it doesn't like this because it's like we just get a generic error. But when we hit something that is a valid mutation, we'll probably get an error message saying, hey, it requires some like input, or like some variables. So like, like an ID like this, or like a username, or whatever. But we can use like verbose error messages to try and fuzz and find stuff. Or we can look at the application, and if we find a mutation that is like, for example, let's say we have update user and we see this, we might be able to be like, okay, let's fuzz this. Does delete user exist, for example? So even though we don't have introspection enabled, we can make guesses and we can fuzz the target application. I think that's basically the main way to do it. And then using error messages and like the field suggestions, which we saw before, that's going to help us find more information when introspection is disabled. So this is the way to go, or at least like the right the right mindset. I keep switching to the wrong views. Apologies for that, but it's all good. Let's take 3 more questions before we wrap up today. So, what are your thoughts on WAFs and other bug bounty platforms saving hunters' payloads? If you send a payload to a target application, it's going to be in the logs. I mean, that's it. That's it, isn't it? Right? I mean, is there like a difference between, I suppose if you're like crafting bypasses and stuff, and then somebody else starts using your information, I don't know. I feel like this is actually quite a complicated question. On the face of it, I'm like, yeah, it's fair game. Like if stuff gets logged, then it's okay. But also I feel like there's probably another layer of subtlety to this question, which is kind of interesting. But I'd be surprised if my target wasn't logging. Like, I'm always telling like development teams to like make sure their logging is on point. So I haven't really thought about it in much detail. So this is an interesting one. How to choose a role in cybersecurity? I never really thought about this. Just do what you think is like most interesting. If you're like, forensics looks cool, I want to read a forensics book, get into forensics. If you're like me, and I like building web apps, but I also like doing pen testing, web app pen testing. So it's like a no-brainer that I do web app stuff. Yeah. And to be honest, I like the flexibility of like the web tech stack, because you've got some like really interesting, cool, very logic heavy backend, but then also you've got like crazy front end frameworks that do bonkers things, and they change like every 2 weeks as well. So yeah, it's to to me, I love that. So, but to other people, they hate it. Like if you ask Heath on stream and you're like, "Hey Heath, do you like web app pen testing?" He's like, "No, it's the worst." And I'm kind of paraphrasing. I don't think he said it's the worst, but I don't think he enjoys it. He much prefers things like Active Directory. But I'm like the opposite. So just do what you enjoy, I think, is the trick. All right, let's take one more question. Oh, here's a good question. Okay, so how do I study besides your job and family? You don't sleep, or you do manage all your time well effectively? No, I do sleep. Sleep to me is like one of the most important things. Like I'm a 8 hours sleep every single night without fail kind of person. And I mean, I'm kind of a morning person as well, which I don't know if that helps or not, but I always go to bed and I always sleep well and I always get up. Like I have a really regimented sleep schedule. But in terms of studying, yeah, to be honest, so when I was studying for certifications, I would basically go to work a couple of hours early, and I would do 2 hours of studying, and then I would start work. This was before I joined TCM. I would travel into the office, and I'd be there at like 7 a.m. or before 7 a.m. Usually, like in the office, we would have this early crew, and you'd always have like a quick morning chat with other people who were always there early. And then I'd just put my headphones in, put some chill music on. I think it's important for me if I put on like really heavy or like really heart pumping music in the morning, that drains me a lot. And then the rest of the day, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired because I've got no dopamine left. But early in the morning, put something relaxing on, do your 2 hours, and then do that. And then obviously I did that every single day. So that's 10 hours a week of uninterrupted study, which was really, really nice. Now I usually fit in like an hour a day. I don't study as much as I used to, but I don't have kids. My life isn't too crazy. Like I work from home, I don't commute, so I have the time to spend an hour or so a day studying. But luckily, at the moment, researching new topics and things like that is kind of part of my job, so I'm not really studying so much. But I think if you can find a block of time, it doesn't have to be every single day, but a block of time that you never miss and you always turn up and you study at that time, I think that helps a lot for sure. And that means that also you have some consistency in your study, because if you do like a few hours study one week and then you don't study for a while and then you do a few hours study the other week, there's no cohesion between those study sessions. So if you can find that block of time, even if it's just 30 minutes to do something consistent, I think that's the most important thing. And there are a lot of hours in the week. Like at the weekends, I'll go bouldering or something with my friends and stuff like that. But once I get back from that, cook lunch, clean up the house a little bit, I got all afternoon and all evening to do nothing else. Occasionally the Formula One is on, and I'll do stuff at the weekend and things like that. But I'm pretty flexible with my time. But at the end of the day, it's all about priorities, and you've got to make time for what you want to make time for. But sleep, don't neglect your sleep, because you won't be able to study effectively if you cut 2 hours of sleep every night, for example. That would be my main advice to anyone. Just before we go, okay, so is web app and AppSec the same thing? So I presume you mean like web app pen testing. So testing web applications is like an offensive thing where like we'd go in, we find vulnerabilities, we exploit them, we give recommendations to the engineers to build better applications. AppSec is more holistic than that. So you might be part of the development team, or you might be part of a team within an organization. And you might be doing things like reviewing code on commits. You might be deploying scanners. You might be helping them with SaaS tools. You might be filtering out false positives. You might be responsible for deploying and tuning a web application firewall. So AppSec is like a whole arena. And I'm thinking more of like AppSec engineering while I'm describing this. But AppSec is like everything. Web app pen testing is just one small part of the whole field of AppSec, if that makes sense. So So yeah, that's all good. I think that's it for the live stream. So yeah, once again, don't forget Black Friday stuff. New module on advanced web hacking. You can get a cheap subscription to the academy, or you can get some money off the certs, etc., etc. Just like if you go to tcmsec.com, you'll see the big banner. And it has everything you need. Obviously, if you're not sure on something, drop into our Discord, discord.gg/TCM. Or is it / the cyber mentor? I forget. But if you have some questions, drop in. One of the help desk guys will help you out, or somebody on the community will help you out as well. Just don't ping anyone when you get in there, because rule number 2 is, I think, the most broken rule, and we don't let people ping each other on Discord, just because, you know, people might be in the zone, they might be working, and then, like, you know, I don't know. Anyway, no pinging on Discord, which is why, if you did see the GraphQL web app for the course is called Pingdom. Let me show you quickly. You see my little cheeky Discord clone is called Pingdom. I thought that was a funny pun. I don't know. If you thought it was funny, let me know in the comments below. And if you hated it, then fair game. All right. Have a great week, everybody. Awesome to see you all, and hopefully catch you all